Hello.
Hello and welcome back to the Worry Mill.
Yep, we're a bit later this time. Really busy past couple of weeks, and last time we want to focus more on Tilda's knitting. I think I'm talking too much.
Well, I think we need to kind of get an update from you first of all.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about two projects of mine.
Good. So last week we cast on this glorious mess. Well, it's not a mess, but it's the Rastus Cowl by Rastus Sue, and he calls it a beginner, adventurous beginner.
Yeah, I would maybe slightly disagree, as I think it's more of an intermediate.
So to remind you, here is the Miller Cowl by Rastus, and you can see really nice effect he's got going here, kind of camouflage colour work. And to me it looked really complicated, and I wanted to do it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And you said you would help me do it, obviously, and it has been challenging as a beginner. And then I noticed that Rastus calls it a beginner, skill level, confident beginner.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. I can see why he says that, because effectively, sorry, I'm scrolling all over the place here. The pattern is this, repeated. So round 1 and 2 is knit 2, slip 2, and it's just really just knit and then slipping to get your baseline row. And then the complicated bit is this cabling, which you've taught me how to do. And we talked about it last week, and we talked about using, this is not a cable, but we talked about that. We'll jump to the overhead camera in a minute. But effectively, once you get the cabling, then it is just a knit stitch in 3 different colours. So we cast on alternating cast on, and you can see there's a kind of a rib, knit and purl cast on, and it's really straightforward. Two knit purl, then 1 purl rib, and then we started that repeating pattern that we just showed, and I made a mistake. My first line was of this colour B. I should have done twice.
You should have done 2 rows in that, but we didn't. We overlooked that it said row 1 and 2.
Yeah, and you can see what I did. I'm now on my second 8-row pattern, and I'm back on the colour B.
Yeah, so what you can see here is that the first one here is very small. If you look at the burgundy colour, then suddenly that become much bigger. So this is just 1 row of the colour, whereas that is actually 2 rows.
Yeah.
So that is really what the difference is. But we decided not to correct it because it was the beginning of the pattern, so no one will really know unless they watch this video. Yeah,
and I thought cabling would be really complicated, and I can imagine it does get complicated, but I think just to take away the mystery of it, we should probably just show one simple cabling. I think for me, it's been important that as a beginner, with lots of help from you, and I think that's the key to knitting, I'm starting to get a really nice pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's much more in focus. So you can start to see that's going to come out, I think, really nice once we keep going with it.
Yeah.
So, to me, the cable seemed really complicated, but once I got into the swing of it, it was actually quite easy. So we're not using a DPN, a double-pointed needle here.
Yeah, because we couldn't find my cable needle.
And the one I'm on is I've got 1 green here and about to enter into 4 of my yellow. So that was just slipping off 2 and then knitting 4 to get that nice row of 4, and then that makes sense. We'll come to the cabling.
Okay, so you slip 1. I'm
slipping 1 and I hold it to the front, and then I knit 2 of, in this case, the mustard or ochre, as I like to call it, and that's just I'm just nitpicking, continental style, and once I've done that, then I can knit this one off the needle, off the cable needle, off the CN.
Yeah, so it may be worth kind of mentioning that there is lots of different cable needles. So you got the ones that are straight, that's like a DPN, and then you got some which has this kink in them, and you even got a U-shaped one. And some people prefer the ones with that's shaped just because it holds on to the stitches a bit better. But if you want to be fast, you're better off with a straight needle.
So he said this is you notice I've slipped 2 onto the cable needle and held it at the back, and then I'm going to knit 1 off my main knitting needle, and this is us bringing the green always to the front so that the colours then show through in that kind of nice single cable.
So it looks like the colour work is kind of sitting at the back. It becomes this 3D kind of pattern where the greens are sitting almost like a wee, like a wee zigzag or a wee kind of almost at the front, and then you have your colour work kind of slightly to the back. So
there's a good one there. So that's, you can see there's a V. Hopefully you can see that.
And also what's maybe worth saying, that if you can see that the colours, the contrast colours are sitting at the front of your work, because that you'd made that mistake a couple of times, and then you can instantly see that you made a mistake.
So that's cabling, or basic cabling, and I think why Rastus is calling it a confident beginner is because once you get the 2 rounds of cabling, the 1 row of cabling, the rest is kind of a knit and a slip stitch the whole way round, and you're always just setting up your rows for that simple cable, which then gives you this really nice multiple layered 3D effect. So I'm now really kind of converted to cabling.
And colour work.
And colour work's where I want to go. I mean, you can see here I've got 3 large cakes of quite expensive Moordale, and managing it is a bit of a pain, but I think that's another video to talk about. So that's enough about me. What have you been doing?
So just over a week ago we cast on this cowl here, and that's also colour work, and you can see there's lots of kind of strands of yarn everywhere here, but that's quite a nice one.
But you're not cabling here.
No, I'm not cabling.
This is just knitting.
Well,
knit and purl.
you know what? It's all knit and purl and slip stitches. So there's
no. Back to the front.
No, that is it.
That's the back.
That's the back.
All right, I see it.
This is the back.
So we're quite a big Rowan shop, and this is a Rowan pattern, I'm guessing, and it's a Rowan, it's Rowan wool.
Yes.
So it's this City Haze. Oops, out of focus, which refers to.
This one here, the fine tweed haze, that all the patterns are for. So it's a gorgeous yarn. It comes in some lovely bright colour.
Okay, so this is the Rowan City Haze book. I always like the Rowan books.
So this, by the way, this is a different colourway.
Oh, that's the same pattern, a different colourway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That part of knitting, that changing just the colours alone can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And understanding a bit about colour, I think, is really important. Not that I do, but I think understanding a bit about colour theory is really quite important.
Yeah, we're in focus.
So 8 patterns, all by the standard Georgia Farrell and Martin Storey and Lisa Richardson, the kind of Rowan gang of designers. Some lovely photography, well done. I think Georgia Farrell is one of my favourite.
Yeah, she's very kind of architectural, but she uses architecture as an inspiration for her knitwear design.
Mm-hmm.
And we got there's actually a lot of really nice books with her.
So talk us through a little bit about your knitting. What is it? Why? How are you getting this effect?
So it's all kind of slip stitches, and these ones here you can also see it's quite textured. So the colour here, for example, is knitted. So this is actually knit from the right side and knit from the purl side, which gives that wee bump. And again, this is slipped here, so where you're holding your yarn to the back of your work. Whereas up here, these lines that goes over here, for example.
Maybe to go in close.
If you go in and look closely at this pattern, you can see that there are some textures. This is basically these bumps are created by knitting on the wrong side, so you're getting your garter ridges. But this one here that you can see on top of the brown is a slipped stitch, and the yarn is held at the back when you slipped it.
So I get that. What's knitting on the wrong side? What do you mean by that?
So when a garter stitch is where you knit every row, but if you do a knit stitch on the wrong side, you're creating these garter stitch rows. But because we've slipped and also knitted at the same time, you're actually just getting like wee dots, or you're only getting like wee lines of colour because you're slipping these other stitches and you're holding your yarn to the wrong side of the work. Up here, these lines you see at the front is actually where you're holding your yarn to the right side of your work. So there's actually a line or there's a strand of yarn sitting at the front. So again, all of this is created by slip stitches. All the colour work is created by slip stitches. And up here again, it's called the woven pattern. So the yarn is repeatedly keep slipping in this one, but we're holding the yarn to the front of onto the right side or onto the wrong side as well to kind of create this texture. So, but I'm only working with one colour at the same time. So I'm knitting in stripes really, but it's just slip stitches that's creating all this, all the colour work.
Can we look at the pattern to see how that looks? So looking at the pattern, there's quite a lot of instructions here. In this area we've got our colourway, what needles, our tension, and how big it'll be when it's finished, and then examples of the two colourway. And then this wrap, so where would you start and try and understand this?
So you've got up here, you basically start, I think we probably should zoom in more. So basically here you can see all this kind of instructions with like knit 3, slip 1, knit 3, and that is actually this ladder pattern you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
This one.
I think it's worth doing a help video on this if you were to buy this and talk through the techniques. Maybe not just taking an example of what they're talking about and then demonstrating it on a video is quite good, because it is quite an interesting output you get here.
Yeah.
Good. So what else have you been doing?
So I have been working on this scarf here.
Okay, so this is quite a straightforward scarf. Even I think I could manage this. So just talk us through what you've done here.
So this is a scarf I've made up for yarn school.
Okay.
For our next
Complete Beginner Part 2.
Yeah.
And this kind of stitch is called?
I actually don't know what it's called. It's just again knit rows and purl rows. It's made to teach you how to do the purl stitch. So that's the whole kind of point of this pattern, is that, and also you get a lot of kind of practice with both knit stitch and purl stitch.
So in part 1 of yarn school, there's a really simple knit stitch, and you can learn to knit this hat, this beanie, just simply using the knit stitch and knitting a flat bit of fabric.
Yeah.
But now in part 2, we've introduced the purl stitch. Yeah. And it gives this texture.
Yeah.
And technically in knitting, there only really is the knit and the purl.
Yes, and then you
arguably.
Yeah. There is only really those 2 stitches, but then you can obviously move them in front of each other or back. And
well, this is the thing. This is the cabling is moving in front and in back, and then slipping or missing a stitch can then give an effect.
Yeah. So there is only kind of a really very few stitches, so it's really easy to learn to knit. So you obviously have noticed some maybe some remarks here, but that's actually, so here I'm showing people how to do a spit splicing. This is actually where I joined the yarn with spit splicing, and the reason I've actually marked it out with this is you can't actually see it at all.
Amazing.
It becomes kind of invisible. So
And then
that-
what's this? Why have you put some pink on it?
Yeah, that's kind of to demonstrate how to weave in your ends. You can't see the weaving in of your ends if you're using the same colour. So that's just for, video purposes, so people can see what's happening.
Great. So this is going to be complete beginner part 2. It's going to be totally free.
Yeah.
And we would like you to learn how to knit with us, and we can move on to the stuff that I'm finding interesting, like cabling and colour work.
Yeah, I can't actually wait to finish this one, because my plan is to use all the leftover wool, because I'm nearly done and I still have these balls of wool left. So I want to do some colour work with them.
Amazing.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Let's get to it, and we'll come back next week for more.
And hopefully I got an update on my next pattern.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, cheers.
Bye.